Hi everyone, glad to be back with you. I'm doing another live feed, but this time I'm doing it because Avery's available. Well, it isn't that he wasn't available before, but it is more likely that we just had technical problems that were an issue at my end. I've since resolved them after hours and hours of messing around with the software that I use and finally realising that I was the idiot. So what we're doing, though, is encouraging you to join with us in our conversation. We had a magnificent conversation yesterday with so many people. It was stimulating, to say the most. And now we've got Avery with us, who's in himself a very stimulating person. And we're going to talk today a little bit more about, he's got some interesting information he's going to provide us in a moment in relation to the geography, I guess, of Iran, and the way the bombs either did or did not find their way to where they should have found their way when they entered that mountain. So Avery's going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to have a conversation about probably Peter Hegseth and the press conference that he gave the other day. And we're also going to talk a little bit about Australia's involvement with Orcus and whether or not that is a proposition that we should follow through. And finally, maybe we're also going to talk about Susan Lee here in Australia as the opposition leader, because I've got some views around her. So in order for us to get underway, I will bring in... Oh, before I do bring in Avery, I just want to remind people to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications, do whatever you need to do in order to make us a popular and wonderful place. Really appreciate that, particularly if I could get rid of that subscribe thing, which I don't seem to be able to get rid of. Which I have now. So do subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything, and it certainly helps me out, and I really appreciate it. And I'd like to thank all those people that subscribed recently. It's been amazing number of people that have subscribed. So in the meantime, here's Avery. I'll bring in the dual shot. Hi, buddy. How's you going today? Sorry we missed out on you yesterday, but that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't say you were tearing your hair out yesterday, because I'd be wondering where you were finding it. But
well, I was tearing something out, but it was the last couple of days have been very frustrating trying to resolve that issue. Yeah. And it just meant at the end of the day, I just needed to reinstall the software, which was fine.
Yeah, we had 2 weeks of I could hear you, I could hear Dee, she could hear me, you couldn't hear me. It's odd.
Anyway, now resolved. Let's get stuck into it. A few people have come on board. Thanks, folks. Please remember to make sure you put a comment down below. I'll bring the comments up as they come to hand. Any questions that you'd like to ask Avery or myself, please do so. And any discussions that sometimes, I noticed yesterday, Avery, a lot of people were having discussions amongst themselves, which is fabulous. This is the community we have where we come together to talk about issues that matter to all of us. Yeah. There were some interesting ones which I didn't get to in the end because there were so many of them I didn't see them all. So please remember to comment, and we'll bring them up so Avery can see them and we can talk about them. Okay, go for it.
One quick thing. When you do, if any comments, if you put them up, can you put them at the top of the screen?
I will do that.
Move my camera out of the way.
Yeah, sure.
Last week we were talking about whether or not Trump would drop those massive ordnance penetrators, the MOP bomb, on Iran, on the Fordo complex. And I was saying that the amount of destruction it could potentially do would depend upon the type of rock, and that it could drill down to about 210 feet, something like that. But again, it would depend upon the type of rock. And if it got down there, dependent upon the type of rock, it could absolutely cave in the roof and destroy everything underneath it, or not. So after the video, I decided, well, I don't know what rock is above that Fordo mountain is made from. So
is this, Avery, I do have to ask though, is this about you being the geologist? Is this?
I earned an earth sciences
there we go. Let's get the qualifications out there. So the man is authenticized.
Yeah, got to do that.
Okay.
So if the rock was igneous or something like granite or andesite or basalt, it's a much harder rock. It's much more homogeneous. So, the entire mountain could be made of that stuff. That sort of rock is much more prone to fracturing uh, if a big bomb got dropped on it. If it's sedimentary, like limestone or dolomite, that is in layers, which is it's not as hard as an igneous rock, and because of that, it's much less likely to fracture. It's also, believe it or not, harder for that massive ordnance penetrator bomb to go down as deep as it would with the harder rock, right? So the depth. I started looking into what the rocks were and what the effect of that MOP would be on a sedimentary rock, and the answer was it would go down to about 180 feet before it detonated. So that would so if it's a sedimentary rock that the mountain's made from, then it would drill down 180 feet. It'd still have 150 feet to go to get to the top of the cavern that the complex is in. The Fordo mountain is actually made from dolomite and layers of dolomite and limestone. So the likelihood of that thing getting down, that bomb getting down far enough, even though 3 of them getting down far enough to cause the roof of the cavern to collapse and fall in on all the centrifuges, is much less likely. So Trump's saying that, and Hegseth saying that the site had been completely obliterated, is I won't say it's a lie.
Is geologically unlikely. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Unlikely.
Yeah.
It's geologically much less likely because of the nature of the rock.
All right, and you do have a sense or an understanding as to the actual rock or stone or whatever it was that makes up that geological.
Yeah, that mountain is made from limestone and dolomite, which are both sedimentary rocks.
Right. Okay.
So the other thing as well is because of the layers and the structure, the shock wave from the explosion will sort of spread around. It'll when it hits a layer, the shock wave will be refracted. Some of it, not all of it, will be refracted. A wave is a wave. A wave hits a boundary layer and it refracts, just like light does. You put a spoon into a glass of water and the spoon looks bent. That's just like that's a light wave refracting. The same sort of thing happens with a shock wave from a bomb going off underground, an earthquake, a volcanic eruption. They cause those shock waves, which when they reach another layer, scatter.
So what would be the probability of those shock waves penetrating further than where the bomb eventually found its stationary point, I guess?
They would propagate, but there's 130 feet, 150 feet of rock beneath the lowermost point it's likely to get to.
Yeah.
All right. So there's layers in there. The shock wave hits the layer, it scatters, it refracts. Some of it goes through. Yeah. Less of it goes through than the actual initial explosion, shock wave from the explosion. Less of it will go through.
Yep.
So you won't get the full shock wave going all the way down to the bottom. Some will go through and refract. Some will be refracted. Some will go through, hit the next boundary, and refract again. So to get the shock, that complete shock all the way through to cause the roof to collapse is much less likely than if it had been an igneous rock like basalt, granite, or andesite.
All right. Right. Okay. So
Trump's just making shit up as usual. He doesn't know.
No, he doesn't. I'm just trying to. Someone has commented, and I'm just trying to bring it up. It doesn't seem. Hold on for a second. No, it's not working properly. So that's okay. I'll fix that shortly. So I guess the issues are, number one is Trump lying, probably. That they are trying to sell us on the story. So the spin at the moment, Avery, to me, I don't know whether you saw this, is how wonderful the Air Force is, how wonderful the pilots were, that the Americans should be celebrating these brave and enthusiastic individuals, and they should recognise that even though they refer to them as men, there were women involved in this, and Hegseth attempted to correct that fatal mistake. But at the end of the day, Americans should do what they can to celebrate the fabulous forces that they have, because apparently, Avery, this is the most significant political or military event in everybody's lifetime.
Well, no.
So I mean, even better, even more significant than D-Day.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
one thing about Trump there is he's being hyperbolic. I'm not saying he's lying. I won't say he's lying.
No,
Right?
no, he wouldn't do
He's
that.
a pathological liar. But
Yeah,
I won't say that in this case he's lying. He doesn't know, but he's self-absorbed. He's the greatest at everything. Everything he does is a resounding success in his mind.
yeah, that's
So
right.
he can't say that this was not a complete, outstanding, blinding success.
No.
Right? That's why he used terms like obliterated and refuses to walk back from that. Won't acknowledge that it might not have been the success he thinks. What's the other thing you said?
I said that that was the greatest thing that the United States has ever
Oh,
done.
yeah. Oh, no, I know what it was I was thinking about. He said, excuse me, he said that we should be, that the people should be celebrating the US military. Brave men, brave women. I agree.
Yeah,
They are brave men and women, right? There was an 18-hour flight to get there and deliver those bombs and get back, and they all got back safely, and I'm really glad that they did. Right?
yeah.
Should they be celebrating an unprovoked attack on a nation that was not an immediate threat to the United States? Absolutely not. Right? D is quite, this person D,
Which
quite
is
right.
Danao Alandion. So I don't know
right.
what the original name is, but nevertheless, thanks whoever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Iranians, they'll be back and running in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So
If that.
yeah,
Another thing I learned when looking into that thing about the rock formations, I tripped over something about the amount of uranium that they've enriched to 60%, which they've taken away from the Fordo site, and it's about it's only about 900 pounds, about 400 kilos, something like that. You could put that in the back of my car, right? My car is a Getz.
yeah,
Uranium is the heaviest naturally occurring element. So 450 400 kilos of it. It's good luck with me trying to lift it, or anybody else basically. But that's not a huge volume. It would fit in the back of my car. I wouldn't want to be sitting in the front of it with all that uranium just behind me.
So the idea, I guess, the idea that pre-warning, we talked about this yesterday, but the pre-warning that Trump gave them meant that they would have found it easy enough to transport the amount of uranium that was necessary to transport and to reuse at some other time.
Yeah, about 70 days ago, he said you've got 6 weeks or 60 days to come to the negotiating table. They were already at the negotiating table.
Yeah.
Right. He says you've got 60 days. That was 60, and then if you don't come to the negotiating table in that 60 days, all hell will break loose. Oh, he said to them, all hell breaking loose, we're going to bomb the shit out of you. Right? They've got 60 days now to move that. They could have done it. They could have moved that much using tablespoons.
Yeah, and I guess the issue there too is that the United States, it seems to me that there's this con game going on, that at some level they wish to con the world, not just the American people, into believing the unbelievable. and that in order to believe that, you have to recognise how significant the United States are as one of the greatest nation on earth with the greatest military, the biggest bombs, whatever. So, given all of that, what do you think is likely to happen when it is discovered that and we're assuming here too, because we don't know, but assuming that they do have all these this material still available to them, that is the Iranians. What's going to happen when suddenly this comes to light and Trump has to backtrack? What's going to happen then?
I think that if the Iranians were to get reporters, will say, from the BBC and CNN and excuse me, and Fox News and the ABC here, and take them into the Fordo complex and let them freely record everything, and you can see that there's bugger all damage in there, not that it hasn't been obliterated, Trump would say it's a deep fake. He would never admit that he was wrong.
Yeah.
And
the other issue too,
evidence he gave him, he wouldn't admit he was wrong.
The other issue too around that, Avery, that we need to consider is that the Iranians were signatory to the non-proliferation treaty, and they now kind of have withdrawn from that because they've now said that they're not interested in the IEAE getting involved in investigating it, who are the people that look after and manage what countries are doing in relation to their nuclear weapons. So what has it done then? It's kind of, because this is the other issue. The other issue for me, and I don't know what other people think, is that that this has exacerbated a problem, not solved it.
Yeah, it's exacerbated a problem that was created by Trump.
Well, it was because there was because didn't Obama already have an agreement in place?
I think it was 2015. The JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, was signed. 7 countries and the EU, as a unit, signed it. That Iran would not go beyond 15% or 20% enriched uranium. They only need 3.5% to build a nuclear power station. Enriched uranium. For medical isotopes, they need 20%. That 20% they could buy from the USA. They could buy from us. Well, maybe not us. They could get that enriched, that 20% enriched uranium from other sources. They didn't need to do it themselves. Trump withdrew from the JCPOA, put sanctions on Iran, and Iran immediately started enriching up to 20%. They reached that around about 2021. Then they started the cycle again, and by about 2023 they'd reached 40%, and then by 2025 they'd reached 60% enrichment, right? All because of Trump. Now he's now talking about, we need to have a deal where you only allowed to enrich up to 5%. They had that, and he withdrew it. He withdrew the USA from it.
And you got to,
because Netanyahu didn't like it.
Well, you've got to reflect back on the reasons why too, and this is where I think it becomes a lot more interesting. Is number one, he did it because Obama did it.
Yeah.
So we can't do anything that a black man did, particularly if we're racist, such as Trump. So dispense with that. And then the other thing too was, I thought that was interesting, was that the country that is not a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty happens to be Israel. And yet no one scrutinises Israel or says, we need to have a look at your stockpile of nuclear weapons and to make sure that you're not producing any more. And I do wonder how many nuclear weapons do you need to be able to blow up a country and just destroy the world? Who knows?
Depends on the size of the country.
Well, it depends on the size of the bomb, I would think, too, to a large extent.
Well, no, it depends on the size of the country.
Well, I think the fallout would be massive anyway.
Again, that depends upon the size. Then it depends upon
the size of the bomb. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I can tell you that I just saw, just today, this morning, I saw a report from the UK's Department of Defense
Mm-hmm.
that the estimate is the Israelis have got 150 warheads. That's about half of what France has got. Look at the difference in size between Israel and France. With a country like Israel, if you use, say, 200 kiloton bombs, 150 kiloton bombs, 3 or 4 of them, 5 of them would obliterate that country. You put those same bombs into a country like Iran, and you're going to cause some damage. You're going to throw some radiation around, or you're going to cause a lot of damage and throw a lot of radiation around, but it's not going to destroy the country. Israel, after 5 or 6 of them, 5 of them would be unlivable.
But and it brings us to the next point. I think for me is why has Israel got the bombs?
Because they could.
Well, that's probably the most simplistic answer I've ever heard from you, Avery.
Yeah,
but I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that
South Africa got the bomb because they could.
But then, okay, it's still, apart from that answer, why have they got bombs?
I'd imagine that their rationale for getting it was to prevent other countries from attacking them.
Oh, right. So, exactly. So it's about security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet, since they got the bomb, which is, I think, in the 1970s,
yeah,
they've been attacked and attacked and attacked, and it didn't stop Hamas attacking them in October 2023. It's not stopped Iran from attacking them. If they got the bomb to defend themselves, to prevent attacks, why, when Iran launched via Hezbollah, Hamas, why, when they attacked them, didn't they just say, well, you're responsible for Iran, here's a couple of nukes for you?
Yeah. Yeah, here's
because they want to be in the big boys club.
Yeah, here's a response from Lakeside, who gave us some terrific responses yesterday, incidentally. And that is Israel has the bombs because of the backing of US. Simple as that.
Yeah.
But okay. I'd like Lakeside. Could you explain to us then why So you're saying, I think, that because the US supported them in getting their bombs, that they were able to get them. Now I accept that, but strategically, what is the point of them having a bomb? That's still the question, I think.
Well,
Avery.
You're waiting for me.
Yep.
As I just said, to a couple of things strategically. One reason, as I said, is they're a member of the Big Boys Club. The other reason is if we've got the bomb, they won't attack us.
Yeah.
And since the late 1940s, because the West had the bomb, the Russians haven't attacked us. Right? So that strengthens the argument.
So
in their mind, in the Israelis' mind, it strengthens the argument that if we've got a bomb, nobody will attack us. And yet, ever since they got the bomb, they've been attacked over and over and over again.
Well, we don't have a bomb. No. New Zealand doesn't have a bomb.
Nobody's attacking us.
No, yeah. So it's a mute argument, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a ridiculous argument. If we've got the bomb, we won't get attacked. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and it's like this, the guys that buy the big red car is because they've got penis envy. It's a bit like a nation having, a massive moment where they think they need to have the biggest and the best and the most thereof. Yeah. Like America has more than anybody else, and then I think comes Russia and so on. So the point is, guys, does it make you any more powerful? Does it make you any more better? Does it make you ideologically superior or morally more sophisticated than anyone else?
Well, it doesn't make you better. If you're not going to use them, why have them?
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah. In the UK, they used to say, we'll only use it if we're losing the war. So my answer to that is, if you use them, you've lost the war. Because if in the UK we'd lobbed some nukes at Russia, right,
Yeah.
then the Soviet Union as it was called then, if we'd lobbed a few of our nukes at the Soviet Union, the response from the Soviet Union would have wiped out the UK. So we've lost. As soon as you launch the first one, drop the first one, you've lost.
Well, I
Especially
would
the
suggest,
country's got
well, in
thousands of war.
counter to your argument, Avery, was the first one happened to be dropped on Japan
The
in an
Japanese
effort
didn't
to
have
win the
anything to
war in the
throw back at
Pacific.
them.
Beg pardon?
The Japanese didn't have atomic weapons to throw back at them.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
But so, so you're saying it has to be, your argument has to be that there's atomic, and a country that's got atomic weapons fighting another country that's got atomic weapons, the first one that drops the bomb on the other country is the winner. Is that what you're saying?
the first, if they drop sufficient, now the UK going to war with the Soviet Union, that would have been a 400 warheads against 9,000. If they sent back a bunch, if they sent 1/7 of theirs back or 1/9 of theirs back, that's 1,000 nukes on the UK.
And
compared with 150 or 300 or whatever.
right,
That
can
we'd
you
sent to them.
can you define for me what one warhead would do?
There it goes to the size. Where at the epicenter where the thing actually detonated, there'd be no building left standing within, hundreds, a couple of hundred yards, depending upon the size of the bomb. Right, the one that was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki was only about 15 kilotons, and you've seen the photographs of the devastation that caused. Every living thing within just going with that size bomb, the 15 kiloton bomb, 15,000 tons, everything within a few square miles was killed. Right, there was one or two survivors.
But I guess my point is that that's one warhead.
That's one.
We could say that the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima, those two places, Hiroshima, that's right, and Nagasaki, they were one warhead, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? So when you're saying that there's going to be how many warheads in particular?
Well, the UK has got about 300 or so.
Right. So
Israel's got 150. The Yanks have got 5,800 of them.
Right. So if you had, say, 5 of those warheads sent off, say Israel to Iran, would that would do enough damage to wipe Iran out?
No, it wouldn't. It would depend upon the size of the bomb.
Okay. So what size bloody bombs do they have?
Well, the size of the bomb, not the physical size, the yield, as they call it, 15 kilotons that was dropped on Hiroshima.
Yeah.
It depends. We've got tactical, not missiles, artillery shells that'll give you that yield.
Mm.
Right? They're low yield weapons. They're 15 kilotons less, 1 kiloton. Right. Yeah. If we drop something like that in the middle of Tehran, it would kill a lot of people. It would destroy a lot of buildings. Further out, it would blow the glass off out the windows. And
well, what about radiation and the damage radiation would do? How far would that spread?
How far would that spread? Well, firstly, it spread towards Pakistan and Afghanistan because of the prevailing winds.
Yep.
The number of people that died in Hiroshima was something like 80,000. And in the time that followed it, the number of people that died from cancers wasn't anything like people who are anti-nuclear predict. It wasn't millions that died. It was tens of thousands. It was still 10,000 too many. If it was 10,000, it was 10,000 too many. Yeah. It was 80,000 too many when the bomb went off in Hiroshima, right? One person dying from a cancer that was caused by radiation is one too many.
Yeah.
Right. But
Someone here though has said that, and there's a really interesting discussion going on at the moment. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
let's have a look
Uh,
at that.
so somebody said no country will attack a country if they expect nuclear weapons in retaliation, and I guess, I guess, so anti-ballistic missiles are designed, are they not, to make sure that if a country does fire upon another country, that they'll be able to destroy those weapons before they arrive.
But
is
you
the
can't
plan.
guarantee hitting it.
But then, I think if this thing, I don't know whether this is boring people to death, but it's stuff I've been thinking about for ages now, since this around stuff anyway. And that is, if a bomb explodes in the air, like you see all these bombs coming into Tel Aviv, and you see the Iron Dome doing its thing, and if one or two of those were atomic bombs and exploded in the air that close to the city, what damage would that do?
Well, that's another good point about the damage that the bomb causes is where it detonates.
Well, this is detonating in the air. That's what I'm
Well, I
saying.
was going to say it depends where it detonates is another factor. If it detonates in the air, say 1,000 feet in the air, it's going to the blast isn't going to have things like buildings or mountains or hills in the way or anything like that, right? So it's going to a lot of the blast the blast will go in every direction, but all the blast coming down won't have structures in the way to provide a little bit of mitigation. It won't, because the how can I put it?
Well,
it's got a much greater volume that it can get to on the ground.
yeah.
So it would cause more damage, kill more people with an air detonation. One of the things that we did when I was in the we never dropped any bombs, atomic bombs, when I was in the RAF. But one of the things that we learned there was that most of our weapons were set for an air detonation.
So explain to me what you guys were doing at Maralinga then.
Well, at Maralinga, they were being tested.
All right. So this is about, here we go. So this is about the British testing stuff on the colonial soil.
Yeah.
I had a discussion with my wife about this the other day. She said, those friggin' British, they go off and they use our place and, to kill indigenous people without really considering the impact and so forth. But for what purpose? So they could develop their own bloody bombs and have them at home. That was it.
Yanks did the same in New Mexico.
And the French did the same in the Atolls, or whatever they call the islands in the Pacific, didn't they?
They in the French Polynesia. I can't remember the name, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Not far from Tahiti.
Yeah. So I guess the bottom line is these things are destructive. Yes. We don't want them dropped anywhere because there's not only the destruction they make when they hit the ground, but also the radiation that they cause, and so on. And also that the reason why countries have them is that they believe that it's protecting them from aggressors.
Somebody said that a country wouldn't be attacked if they thought there might be a potential retaliation with a nuclear weapon. Argentina attacked the UK, 1982.
That's right.
Yeah, it doesn't stop it.
No.
Israel, as I said, Israel has been attacked countless times since they got the bomb. Hasn't stopped it.
Yeah.
It hasn't been another nation until, it's been several times now that the Iranians have attacked Israel.
But you'd think, if Israel so wanted Iran rather to be destroyed, as emphatically as the Iranians want the Jewish state destroyed, you would think, given that the Israelis have the bomb, that they would have found a way to at least use it.
Well, they've got the bomb. I don't know whether it's an actual bomb or it's which you've dropped,
or it's a sparkler.
No, yeah. I don't know whether it's, excuse me. I don't know whether it's an actual bomb or that's dropped from an aircraft, or it's a a missile. I think it's probably going to be bombs. Air delivered by
So
aircraft.
delivered by air rather than delivered
Yeah,
by a
yeah.
rocket. Yeah.
They won't be the 10 megaton things. Those things are launched on top of ballistic missiles. So they're more likely to be 200, 100, 200, 300 kilotons. They've proven that they can get their aircraft into Iran and back safely and cause a fair amount of damage. Now, you imagine if they took, took their weapons, their aircraft that can carry the nuclear bombs, and attacked Tehran.
And the
Qom,
other thing, Avery, just around that issue, can you imagine? Can you imagine the uproar that there would be, because that very act would validate Iran's reason for having a bomb?
It absolutely would. Yeah. I
So,
mean, Iran's not a country that I would trust.
Oh, they're terrible. I mean, not them. That's unfair. But the government's a shocker.
Yeah.
That's true. I reckon the Iranian government's almost as bad as Trump's, but that's probably drawing too much of a fine line between the two. But they're into chaos and to hurting people.
I mean, they're state sponsors of terrorism.
Yeah.
Right? The government there is terrible.
I think there's. I just want to say this though. There's a bit of an irony in the fact that the CIA have been running around the world for decades now, changing governments and
when they were founded,
assassinating people and doing this other stuff, and they're seen as heroes. Whereas if the Iranians choose to do it, they're terrorists.
Oh, of course. I mean, in Iran, Hamas are not terrorists, right?
Yeah.
In Ireland, the IRA were not terrorists, but in the UK,
they were. Yeah, no, precisely. So it depends. So it depends on your perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Yeah.
It's,
so they called it where the French were was the Bikini Atoll. Says
Bikini. No, that's American.
Well, Yankees also done it in the Bikini Atoll, whatever that is.
The Bikini Atoll was only the Americans.
Oh, right. I thought they were referring to the atoll that was the French atoll. What would I know?
The French one. Hang on. While you're doing that, speak amongst yourself.
Now, I just wanted to... so Avery will busily Google something and look it up for us, I guess. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about Orcus. Somebody has mentioned here in the responses about Orcus, which I think is a really topical subject and something that we need to talk about a little bit more. Because, as I said in a previous post, should we rely on the United States for anything, let alone providing us with military security or whatever? And the Orcus itself is something that Trump didn't know about when he was asked about it, so he's not connected with it whatsoever. And whether or not, because they have to produce now 1.3 submarines a year just for their own needs. They're only producing 1.3 submarines a year for their own needs, and they need 2 a year to keep their own supplies happening, I guess. So where is the room in all of that for Australian submarines? Well, actually, there is none. So at what point, people like Avery and I can look at this and say, well, it doesn't make any sense. But at what point do the United States say, well, we're just not going to give you any because we need them for ourselves? And, is it possible to look at this AUKUS thing a bit differently and say, well, does it mean then we have to develop tighter ties with the United States so we can use their submarines? Or do we need to go to France and Germany or other countries in Europe in order to procure the same thing? But then that creates another problem because Europe now and the UK, or Europe in particular, because of NATO, are spending heaps more money, $1 trillion a year or something, on defence within Europe to make sure that Russia doesn't get away with the European goodies. So, Avery, you're back?
Yeah.
So that's my rant about Orcus and where we stand. I don't know if you had a chance to hear all of that while you were messing around. Good
I did.
response.
I'll very quickly tell you, the thing I was looking up was where were French nuclear tests. The Bikini test was definitely American and only American. The French nuclear tests in the Pacific, 193 of them, at Mururoa and
Mururoa. That's what I was looking for.
Mururoa and Fangatufa
Right.
atolls
Yep.
in French Polynesia. The thing with the submarines, 1.3 being built per year, it takes about 4 years to build or 3 years to build a complete submarine. The Yanks have got hundreds of, I think it's 300 submarines, many of which are aging and they need to be replaced. So Trump's saying America first, we need to replace our fleet of submarines. Yeah, your idea is America first and screw your allies. Defending them, we're going to replace our submarines.
Yeah, and I know. So I just had a response from Daniel. No, I know you didn't mean French, so I do apologise. I corrected myself. So what were you saying? What's that final point?
That was at least 30 seconds ago, so I've forgotten.
How's the fish syndrome? Just wandering around that tank, forgetting where you were just a few seconds before. I think that's an age thing. I'm a bit concerned about it myself.
Yeah,
but
what I was saying was that the Americans, it takes. They're building 1.3 submarines per year. Trump's policy is America first and screw the allies. So we need to, and they've got several hundred submarines, many of which are aging and need replacing. So I understand him wanting to, if he was to say 1.3 submarines a year and we need to replace ours, we're going to replace ours before we start selling them to other countries. I can understand him doing that.
Yeah, yes. Well, I can understand it, but I think it's about being honest about it, though, and saying, well, we shouldn't take your money if we're not going to provide anything for you.
Yeah.
I mean, F off.
It wasn't him that did Orcus. That was under Biden, right? And
well, it was Morrison. Oh, it was before Morrison as well, though, wasn't it?
I think it was Morrison that signed it.
Initially, but it was instigated prior to Morrison. Who was before Morrison? Abbott. Turnbull, that's right.
Yeah, it was,
that's right.
You said, why would Trump spend the money, take our money? Well, that's what I'm saying. It was Biden that signed the Orcus deal, not Trump. Why would it take it? Because it's export dollars. It's good.
Admittedly, Biden signing it, they must have known the complications that were involved in terms of producing enough submarines for themselves, surely.
Oh yeah.
So
that 1.3 has been at that level for several decades.
Yeah. Now, Avery, that's not a segue into anything. But before we close, I just wanted to cover some Australian politics. Mm-hmm. There was some heartening. I just thought of it just then. I haven't got the stats with me. I did have a clip actually of the Treasurer Chalmers just talking about the latest changes in the Australian economy, and it's quite impressive. Inflation is kind of steady. It's a fraction down, but not all that much. That the business seems to be humming along rather nicely. We're doing okay. But and there's no great distress. The only distress is in housing, right, which is going to be there with us for quite some time, I would imagine. But I did want to talk about Susan Lee. Now, I don't know whether you've seen many of Susan's interviews, but she did this week a press club meeting speech, which we seemed to spend a lot of the time just talking about her background and her past. So it's almost like there's this effort now to help us to catch up with who Susan Lee is. So it seems the Liberal Party seem to be saying, well, people don't know who you are, so get out there and sell yourself, even though she's been in politics for now 20 years or something.
Yeah.
or 15 years maybe. But anyway, so she's out there busily selling herself, and Sky News have been fascinating because I've decided that Sky News hate her simply because she's a woman.
Yeah.
So,
I'd agree with that. They hated Julia Gillard for the same reason.
well, they hated her because she's also Labor. So you had a couple of reasons to hate her.
I mean, she had two sins there. You know,
Yeah, and she's also Prime Minister. Oh, 3 reasons.
3 reasons, yeah. Yeah, definitely. 3, single. She didn't like that.
Oh, yeah, single, that's right.
Yeah, home having babies.
That's right. And she had a partner who was a hairdresser.
Yeah.
Or sold hairdressing equipment or something. So, yes. So the issue at the moment, though, seems to be that Susan's racing around the countryside doing podcasts, interestingly enough. She just did one with The Age yesterday, talking about, and they always start with, give us your backstory. So they're basically saying, it's very rare that you have a politician being interviewed and someone says, tell us your story. Like we expect to know someone's story, unless they've written an autobiography or something. Yeah. Then they tell their story. But
in the previous, I can't remember what she was minister of under Abbott and Turnbull or whoever it was. I thought she was one of the better ones that they had. She wasn't brilliant, right? But she was one of the better people that had. But she was very prone to open her mouth and put her foot in it. And she would say, I can't remember any off the top of my head, but I remember she would say some really outrageous things, and she'd get away with it, and she got pushed into the background for a while because of some of the things that she would say.
Yeah.
How she rose from that obscurity to take the leadership just shows to me the lack of depth that they've got in the Liberal Party right now.
Well, they've got, I try to be bipartisan when I come and look at politicians on both sides of the House. And, I do look at who seems to have some sort of a moral compass, I guess. Who's the most aggressive? Why are they choosing to be aggressive? Are they winning their arguments or not? And I look at that, and then I look at and it's hard when you're in opposition. So I get that. Like if you don't have the same opportunities to have the speaking points or the issues as do if you're leading the argument, which you're doing if you're in government. But in question time, she was terrible, absolutely terrible. She was just hammering the same issue without any substance. And the problem with that was that they were opposing everything. Interestingly enough, she's come around now and she's starting to let people know, I think, that they're not going to be the coalition as they were for the previous 3 years, that they are going to support. Now whether they actually do that or not, I think remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But
I mean, back in the United States, the Republicans were the coalition, and they were, if the Democrats said it, we're going to oppose it, and then they said, oh no, we're not. But Susan Lee's done the same thing here. We're not going to be the coalition.
Yeah.
They were exactly that in the previous Albanese government. They'll be exactly that in the next Albanese government.
Yeah.
I don't believe that she'll do that at all.
So I'm hoping Avery that we can, we might touch upon American politics when it blows up, and it seems to blow up every day. That's fine. But we'll also we need to focus on Australian politics, what's happening closer to home, because most of the people that subscribe to my channel are from Australia.
Yeah.
And so it's important that we have those kind of sort of more local conversations, I guess. And next week, I'm away for a week, going up to the Gold Coast. So I'll be doing some posts from there, from what I can do. So I'll still be in contact with everybody. But I just want to say to people, could you please subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications, do what you need to do, would be really, really fabulous. And I want to thank you, Avery, and we may not catch up next week. I don't know how the connections will work up there. I do believe they have the internet on the Gold Coast.
Have they entered the 21st century yet?
Barely. There's but
Well,
Yeah,
they haven't-
the
they haven't
weather,
got
the weather. Hopefully, sorry.
I was just going to say they haven't got Sir Joe as their leader for anymore. So yeah, they might have crept into the 21st
No, and
century.
the peanut farms are safe.
Yeah.
So thanks, Avery, for being with us. And just as we close, I'd like to thank all of those people that have joined us today and to join the conversation. Really have appreciated it. And keep in contact, and please subscribe, ring the bell for further notifications. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, make sure that you and the people that you love are safe.